Okay, for starters, give me each of your names. This is an interview with Radiohead, and I want to get both your names with your voices, so go ahead and identify yourselves.
Do you want to go first?
I'm Thom.
And I'm Colin.
Okay, Thom, you're on the hot seat first. I'm going to start with you. What was your first musical memory, and what musicians did you listen to when you were young?
My first musical memory was a friend of mine buying Queen's Greatest Hits. Well, that's sort of, yeah. And I kind of decided that week that I wanted to be Brian May. So I went to school with my guitar and sort of sat down with my guitar teacher and said I want to be Brian May. And I was like, 8, I think.
What did she say to that?
She laughed. And I got very angry.
And at that point you said, if you're going to laugh at me, I'm really going to do it.
Yeah, I was going to really do it anyway. I've been very obsessive all my life. So I decided that was what I was going to do with my life then.
What other musicians did you obsess about when you were young?
Elvis Costello, Japan, very into Japan when I was young. David Sylvian. I used to go around in makeup a lot and dyed my hair blonde and grew it long. And who else? R.E.M. I was very obsessed by R.E.M., but that was later on. They all seemed to be very much out on the limb from everything else that was going on at the time. And sort of trying to remain so as well.
Yeah, I know it's hard to kind of say exactly what it is about. You know, you liked their music. What can you say? What kind of a childhood did you have then? I mean, was it were you well adjusted, or did you have your dysfunctional family members, as everybody does?
I don't think that's the rest of the world's business.
Well, did you have a musical childhood? I mean,
no, not really.
No.
I had a guitar when I was 4, which was like a steel string guitar, and I tried to play it, but I cut my fingers, so I threw it against the wall and destroyed it. That's about the nearest I got to music.
Oh, really? So you basically kind of started music out for yourself, as opposed to having, I know a lot of people say, well, my parents were in music or whatever.
Yeah. It was no musical background at all in that sense.
Really? Now, were your parents, supportive in the sense that they had certain plans for you, and I know you failed art in college, and were they concerned?
I didn't actually fail art. I got a degree in art.
Really? So
yeah, I failed in terms of the fact that they told me I couldn't paint, but I still got a degree.
Oh, okay. Well, they implied in the bio that you failed an art course.
Yeah.
And so you have a degree in art then?
Mm-hmm. Art and English.
You know, what kind of a background do you have to actually have a degree in art?
You just have to, with this course, you had to make your own art and justify your ideas and your actions, and it was more to do with teaching yourself a structure in which to work creatively, and be able to deal with criticism and justify your existence on a creative basis, rather than your knowledge of history or criticism. After a year of art college and occasionally going into paint and doing very little else, they said, you can't paint, Thom. And they were right. So I disappeared for a month or so. I didn't go to art college at all. And then I came back and they just bought a whole load of Apple Macs. So I ended up working on those, and it was the perfect place for me to work, because it was you could have an idea in the morning and go in, and by the end of the day you could have finished it completely and have loads of different versions and so on.
Yeah, when you say Apple Mac, what were you doing on the computers?
Just stealing images, scanning images, using bits of text. I don't know really, it's quite difficult to explain, but I was using something that nobody else that I knew was using as an art form. So that's why, for me, it was exciting. So
you were using the computer to make art?
Yeah, although a lot of people said it wasn't.
So then what, with this art and your art background, what then made you kind of turn to music and really make that a career for yourself?
Oh, well, the art was always just an excuse. But I got into art college and I kind of wanted to go. It was a good idea for me to form my own creative structure thing. And that's what I learnt from art college, and that's what I came away with. But I was always going to be with the band, and that was always what we were going to do, because like we were in it before that, before we went to art college, before we went to college and stuff.
When did you first say that you were going to be in a band and do?
Well, that sort of when I was 8, but then I met everyone at school.
So you had the idea, and it took a little while to really get serious.
Quite a while.
That's all right. I mean, you know, people. You can start later these days. You know, you don't have to be these young.
I didn't really start late. I mean, I think we probably started earlier than anybody else I've ever heard about in a band, really.
Right, but you didn't have a specific band that you followed throughout, you know, the years of your life, starting from 8 and moving on. And
well, Radiohead was sort of we met when we were 16, 17. I mean, we knew each other anyway. So I think it's pretty early.
Do you recall, kind of an off-the-wall question here, do you recall the most trouble you ever got into as a child?
There was things, but they're very embarrassing. I don't like talking about my childhood.
Right. You also did some DJing at a club called, was the Lemon Grove Club, and that was on campus?
Yeah, that was an excuse to buy loads of records, spend loads of money on records, and sort of be a cult figure or something. It was great.
So you had
great for my ego.
Well, you had quite a following, didn't you?
Yeah, well, when I started the club, it was like we had 250 people coming every week, and it was quite embarrassing. And the first time I did it, you know, I just basically had like 20-odd albums of mine and a few singles. You know, I had absolutely nothing, and I just kept having to play them. But I went out the next week. I like borrowed 250 quid from the bank, just went out and bought these records. And the next thing I know, like about 4 months later, you know, we were getting like 1,000 plus people a week, making a fortune.
But still, rather than playing the music, you wanted to be the one making the music.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I always used to say to people as well.
Someday somebody else will be playing my music up here.
And that's what they're doing, yeah. Like they always, they've played all our records there.
Now, you've had some formal vocal training. How has that helped your performances? What have you done?
It just means that I can sing louder in tune, I can control it, and I don't. It doesn't wear out. Basically, my teacher he listened to my voice and told me all the things that were going to ruin it if I carried on doing it.
What's
doing them?
Besides smoking and things like that?
Yeah, besides smoking. Yeah, he always used to give me a lecture because I was still smoking then. And he used to give me a big row whenever I went in for a lesson because he could always smell it on me. He was great though. But we always ran into problems because I couldn't really read music. And like he'd give me things to practice and I'd come back and I'd say, you have to sing this to me because I can't read it.
Did you ever learn to read music or did you?
Not really. I don't know why. I could never get the hang of it at all.
Why exactly is it that you dub yourself playing inaudible guitar? Explain what inaudible guitar means.
Oh, when you get to guitar 3 in a mix, it's kind of a bit difficult to place it a lot of the time because it just becomes complete chaos when you hear it. So that's what inaudible guitar is, just a reference to the fact that often I'm playing the guitar. So my fingers are bleeding, but you can't actually hear it off the stage. But that's good. I don't mind that. It does add to the general noise level.
But you do have audible voice for singing over all that stuff, so that's what counts, of course.
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right, Colin, let's move on to you now.
All right.
Ha, ha, ha.
Ha ha ha.
All right. What kinds of goals did you have when you were young? Did your parents have specific plans for you? Did you have a specific idea of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I didn't really have any specific goals or plans other than rather sadly, playing music with the other people in Radiohead when I was from the age when you start forming your goals and plans, and about 14, I suppose, 15. I was really into certain kinds of music, and I thought it'd be really cool to play in bands. You know, sometimes, you know, if you really like a band, you have this dream that you're going to like maybe one day play bass guitar for them or something. Like their bassist falls sick just at a moment, and you're the only person in the audience who knows the chords to their song. So, but that never happened. That's why when we did this gig in Israel, this guy asked if he could play bass on Creep when we were doing a gig, and he didn't play at the gig, but he did it on the sound check, and that was fine, because, you know, if someone in like New Order had asked me if I wanted to play bass on set on one of their songs, and I'd be great fun.
Oh, that's great. I know that means so much to a fan.
Yeah, it's the ultimate fan thing, really, isn't it? Except maybe, sorry.
Except for playing on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's important to keep that connection with your friends and remember how you felt or how you feel when you see the people that you enjoy.
Yeah.
So it's nice that you guys can keep that sensitivity. Did your parents, were they concerned when you were really just doing the music thing?
Yeah, well, it's me and Johnny. It's like Johnny's my brother and he's in the band. Our mother thinks that we're not doing proper jobs yet, and she thinks, because Jonathan's the youngest, so she thinks that Jonathan's like career in life has been perverted, and she thinks, my mother thinks that I should be getting into law or accountancy, or maybe becoming an academic. But it's kind of, and she thinks it's all going to end tomorrow as well. But I find that quite a healthy attitude in a way, because like she doesn't, you know, she's not overly impressed by anything, and I kind of like that, so that's fine.
Oh yeah, I think it's important that you have the people around you that kind of keep you grounded.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
It's like, you're not that special. You're just my son.
Yes.
Do you recall kind of announcing to either your parents or your friends, or kind of announcing to yourself, I'm going to be a musician?
Coming out. Hi, I'm going to be a musician.
Yes. He's a closet musician.
Hey, Mum, I'm a musician. Well, it's hard to say really, because I've been hanging out with the other idiots in the band for so long anyway that, you know, it was kind of common knowledge, and our mum said, well, at least it keeps you off the streets. So, and you know, I don't really regard myself. Well, I suppose I'm a musician, but it's a very basic thing, and it's a very personal thing. So, it's, you know, I know so many people who are great musicians who haven't got any work in England. And like our management has this losers theory about the way how good you can play your guitar, in relative to like how successful you become. It's kind of like a version of the punk rock theory. So if like you're not very good at your guitar, but you can hit it loudly, then you're going to probably do better.
What attracted you then to playing bass, and how old were you when you began?
Well, what attracted me to playing the bass? Well, I suppose my two bass heroes were this guy called Peter Hook, who plays in New Order, and also I used to have this tape, and one side it had like Joy Division on it, which is a early New Order band. It's quite punky, and on the other side I had the Best of Otis Redding, which I thought was amazing. And so I used to listen to like this guy Donald Duck Dunn. He played with Blues Brothers people. And there's this other Stax bass player called James Jameson. He played with Isaac Hayes and William Bell and all the Stax people. So I really liked. But I also the main reason why I like both of them is because they both played really simply, but it sounded good. So I thought, well, I'm not very good, but I can like at least make it sound good.
Well, a lot of it is knowing when not to play.
Yeah,
especially with bass.
So my brother drummed into me. He said, listen to Kim Deal at the Pixies. She doesn't play very much, and it sounds great. So, all right then.
Do you remember your very, very first ever performance in front of an audience or anything?
Yeah, we played this gig, and we didn't have a drummer at the time. I must have been about 15. And we had a drum machine to do the numbers, and it was a nightmare because it kept breaking down. Like, or halfway through a song it would stop, or like start a song and it would like be in a waltz or something. So we had to kind of like rearrange it or speed up.
I remember screaming obscenities down the microphone while the parents looked on.
Yeah, it's very embarrassing. It was very embarrassing.
You're like,
God, I just started playing the bass, and it was like all really sort of simple stuff, and this guy came up and complimented me on my bass playing, and I found out later he was tone deaf, so he hasn't got a clue anyway. So So that was very weird.
Tell me about your musical influences. I know that in the bio it says you enjoy listening to depressing music, like Joy Division and Husker Du and Cliff Richard. Why do you like these people, and why depressing music?
Yeah, Cliff Richard's depressing, but I wouldn't listen to him really. But why do I enjoy them? It's not so much that, I mean, you could say it's depressing music, and it's just that writes it off a whole like genre of music, and like all the songs are different as well within like those bands, Husker Du, American Music Club, and Joy Division. It's just really personal music where you feel the person who's singing it like feels he has to sing a song about something, and it's just really emotional, and it's good. And it doesn't, I mean, also it's kind of linked with them as well, as it doesn't come easy in terms of like a smooth AOR rock ballad where everything is played beautifully and produced like really rock production. So then you feel like any kind of, you know, inarticulacy is any problems is smoothed out, and it's just too easy. So I like music that's a bit more sort of rough, and you have to get into it a bit harder.
I like pop music.
It's great for what it is. Like pop music is great. You know, good pop writing songs are the best.
And I believe you were the one that compared Radiohead to Spinal Tap. Is that right?
No, I didn't. No, that's not true. Why is that? What was that?
We're staying at the same hotel.
I think it was more in reference to the volume than anything else.
Oh, right, the guitars. Yeah, I was like saying quite common questions. Are you asking Tom? Except you asked it a lot better. It was about inaudible guitars. Like, why do you have 3 guitars? And so, I mean. I just usually say, well, you know, it's like Spinal Tap, you know, you've got 2 guitars, and where do you go? Where do you want to get a bit louder? And you see, that's where we have the other guitar, and like it's number 11.
I was going to say 11.
I mean, you might say, why don't you just have 2 guitars and make one of them a bit louder or something? But, you know, but we've got the other guitar, so.
But that's what Rob Reiner's character is.
Yeah, but this one goes up to 11. 10 a bit louder, yes.
Okay, well, let's, That marks the end of our individual portion of the programming. We shall now move on to, I'm just going to ask, you know, questions, and either one of you feel free to respond, but just make sure that you're right on mic when you do. Tell me, just basically, 6 years ago, I guess, marks the creation of Radiohead, but it seems like you guys have been together longer than that. It said in the bio that it was 6 years ago, but just tell me, when do you consider that Radiohead started, and how did you all come together to form the band?
Well, it started at school. I can't remember when. Sometime at school, I think.
You can't remember life without Radiohead.
It started at school.
It's kind of like that, yeah.
The most important thing when you're in a band at school is you want to play with your friends, and we just, you know, we just like hung out together, and we all, you know, we didn't have any other friends at school, and we were kind of a lot poppier then as well, and. We used to, like, you know, when you play in a band at school, you want your friends to be in it as well. And we used to have like some saxophones and some keyboards and things, just to like, because they were people we knew and wanted to, you know, just to play with. But I suppose properly in the public eye, it's kind of started about 18 months, 2 years ago, after we left college, with the songs that we've been doing. In that sense, publicly, it started 2 years ago, but like privately, I mean, we've known each other for about 8 years now.
Been demoing and writing for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And how did you settle on the group's name, and were there any other names that you considered before you settled on Radiohead?
Yeah, we were called On a Friday, which has got to be the worst name for a band ever. Oh, I don't know. It just was.
Yeah, there are loads of worse names than On a Friday.
All right.
I've got this theory about how the more ridiculous your name, the more chance you can have success, because all the great bands seem to have people like saying in their career, God, you know, what stupid name, whatever. So.
Well, you know, it certainly seems that you need to do anything in your power to make yourself memorable.
Yeah.
Because there's no more common thing than out-of-work virtuoso. I mean, it's not how talented you are, unfortunately, although that figures into it. When you have the opportunity, if you don't have the talent, obviously you're not going to go anywhere, but there are a lot of very talented musicians, as you mentioned, that are not working.
But they're not talented. I mean, they are, but they're not, you know?
Well, they may not...
It's a physical thing.
Well, yeah, they're not talented in the means of learning, you know, knowing how to get to a position where they can play their music and make money for it. You know, it's very difficult.
That's intuitive, though. You do that. I think we do that intuitively. if you do it deliberately, then people see through it very fast.
So what does Radiohead? What does it mean to you guys? What made you settle on that name?
It's just got loads of great connotations, really.
Especially at the moment.
Yeah.
In terms of the fact that we've been played on the radio a lot. I mean, it's kind of ironic in England because we didn't get any radio play and we're called Radiohead. But in other countries like America and France and Europe and Israel, the reasons why we're doing so well there at the moment is just because we're on the airwaves all the time.
Yeah.
So.
But it's also about the way you take information in, the way you respond to the environment you're put in. You just become like a synapse in a long chain of other people's ideas. You receive and you consume. You buy things you're told to buy. You read things you're told to read, or you don't read things you're told to read. And it's very much sort of the passive acceptance of your environment.
Now your demos were released in May of '92 as an EP called Drill.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure I have all my information right. Tell me about that experience of really your first experience making an actual record that went out to the public.
Well, half of that record was never supposed to go out to the. Wasn't going to go out to the public in such a big way because we were going to. Like some of the tracks on Drill were like original rough demos that we'd done originally to. Well, the original plan before we signed to EMI is we were going to release a single on an independent label, funded by like the people who eventually now manage us. But there was so much interest from those initial recordings that we never got around to funding our own single. We ended up being funded by EMI.
A bit of a shock.
Yes. So there are 4 tracks on that single, on the EP, and it's very basic and rough. It's quite rough, isn't it?
It's very, very difficult to get hold of.
Yes, it's very hard to get hold of, and it was a big learning experience record in terms of artwork and organising layouts, picture design.
Absolutely.
Because we paid a stupid amount of money to get a design company to do the sleeve. And
the whole thing was like a big shock to the system.
Yeah.
And the best bit was they lost the first 3,000 copies they'd pressed. They lost them.
Yes.
They lost them.
They lost them, and they had to delay the release by 2 weeks. It's like, this is getting really silly.
Yes.
How do you lose that?
There was a warehouse for millions of Iron Maiden records.
Yeah, and it all went down. It was supposed to be automated.
Yes.
And they did press out. Saying that though, that the actual physical record was getting out. There was a promotion one going around that said Radiohead Drill on it, but actually had Joe Cocker.
Joe Cocker?
Yeah.
Why?
It was the wrong thing. It's he's on EMI and they just pressed it wrongly.
Printed it or whatever. Yeah.
You didn't have a very good first experience there, did you?
It was quite spectacularly bad.
It's a good learning experience, I suppose. And it sold quite well for England. I mean, if we'd been in the independent chart, which is kind of like the alternative R&R chart here, it would have been top 5.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it was the major chart. It's like Billboard, so it's like 72. We got it 70 something, but it's still quite a good debut.
It's not bad, really, considering.
Yeah.
Was money coming in? I mean, were you making a living doing this when they were selling that?
Oh, it never works like that. The record business doesn't work in terms of bands making money.
You're paid money in anticipated future earnings.
Your life is offset against your loan. So it's like taking out the most hideous mortgage of your life, creatively speaking.
I was put really well by this guy, Sean Slade, who co-produced the album, and said he compared like getting a loan from a record company and getting a loan from a bank. So you get a loan from a bank, if you can persuade them to lend you, say, $200,000 for a year, like a record company advance, and they'd have charged, say, 12% interest on the loan or whatever. If you pay the loan back, then you don't have to pay any money after that. So if you you're lent like £200,000 from a record company, and then after that, the money that you earn is just the 12%, so you don't actually,
But we're a band of accountants.
Profit. Yeah.
So tell me then, for recording your current album, Pablo Honey, how did that differ from Drill? And obviously, what did you learn that you brought to the mix when you went to do this album?
Didn't learn very much.
No.
at all. Purely on the basis that we'd never worked with like completely different people before. We were 2 Americans and in a completely different studio before. Although we'd been in there like this time last year before to record Creep, but the experience was so alien and new and short, 3 weeks, concentrated. You know, we recorded it very quickly.
I was unbearable, apparently.
Yeah, you were. Yeah.
What was he like? Tell me what you really wanted to say to him. You couldn't at the time because it was so...
Well, no, it's just one of those things. You just, it's best to file under experience and move on.
So is it, it must get kind of stressful when you're trying to put something together, especially when you have a limited amount of time to work in. How do you guys, keep from getting on each other's backs?
Because we're friends.
Yeah, it's the bottom line. And
otherwise we would have split up years ago.
Yeah, and we were prepared to get to say, there's no point if you're in a situation with your group of people and you don't say what's on your mind, what you're pissed off about or something, or then it just gets worse and the situation festers and you can see that with groups.
Certain famous bands
who, especially it's usually bands who come over to America. Because it's such a completely different alien culture and experience and workload that if they weren't very close together when they were in England, they get a lot more distant, even more distant coming over here.
People who don't like each other ultimately don't last, so
yeah.
No matter how successful their music is.
Mm.
Well, let me tell me about Creep was the first single, right? Tell me about, just give me a little insight into how that got written, or what it's about, or how it got chosen as the first release from the album.
Well, over here it was the first release. Was it over there? It was that
second,
in Britain. It was
second release
in Britain. What
was
the
first release from the album?
I don't know. I'll get confused. Oh yeah, it was. Yeah. How did it get written? Oh well, there's the story that which is true, that we were warming up for another song and the tape was rolling, and Sean and Paul hit the intercom button and said, "We're doing that one." We're not doing the other one, we're doing that one. But we did the other one as well. And we kind of kept most of that tape, actually, on the Phonesh record. And it taught us a lot. And the actual recording of it taught us a lot. Hang on, we actually sound quite good when we don't know the tape's rolling and things like that.
It's one of those things that if you don't think it's important, you always play better.
Yeah.
Whilst if you realise that the money is ticking, the tape is running, and the producers are sitting at the console tearing their hair out, then it's just an experience thing. It's learning to realise that it doesn't matter, and it's not just you have fun. You should have fun and all the time, and it'll be all right, rather than getting the fear.
Mm. If you get the fear, then you might as well stop.
Yeah.
What's it about?
The song?
Tell me in your own words. A brief synopsis of the song.
I'm not very keen on I'd rather people just interpret it how they interpret it. We've been asked all week about it, and I can say loads of things, but it's actually just better for people to dig it up how they want to dig it up, and whether it was anything to do with me or not is irrelevant, I think. It's the age-old thing. You just read any, old painters and stuff, and they'd be asked time and time and time and time and time again, what does this bit mean? What does that bit mean? And they always just, they always, now as well, they always just say, well, it's up to you, It's yours, it's not mine anymore. Well, it is, but it isn't.
No, but that's nice to give it to your fans, basically. This is yours. You interpret it.
Yeah, and we as a band take whatever we want from it as well.
Yeah, your favourite songs are songs that mean something to you, and in the way they become part of you rather than the actual songwriter. They passed over an ownership to you, and sometimes you can't make out the words of your favourite song, and so you fill in the blanks with what you think the singer is saying and all that kind of stuff.
It's so funny, sometimes, when we're playing it live, it just feels like we're playing a cover version of someone else's song.
Yeah,
we just happen to have written it. It's very surreal.
In a sense, it's not that it's not fun playing it live, but it's more of a different mind mind thing to playing that song live compared to like some other songs where you can really feel that you can let loose and really just take off with the music, like the song Blowouts, which we play.
Each song it creates a different mood as you start it anyway, I think.
Now is the follow-up single here, Anyone Can Play Guitar?
Pass, don't know.
You don't know? I mean, that's what I have.
Do you know?
It's Anyone Can Play. The repro's been finalised for it, yeah.
There's going to be a lot of very pissed off hair bands. Great. Oh, I didn't know that.
Are you using kind of a parody of that whole thing?
Oh,
No.
yeah. No? Yeah, maybe.
If you want it to be.
If you want it to be.
Well, that's kind of different because it's a song that's more of a externalized thing. It's like talking about like situations outside the singer and what they think, rather than the extreme personal statements of Creep.
Yeah.
So
Offset Creep a bit.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Give a variety out
Yes.
there. Keep your fans guessing. What are they going to do next? Is there any story behind that? How that one came to be written, or what caused? Well, I guess the choice to make it the second single is. A lot of people have a hand in that decision, but is there anything to say about the song itself?
It's a song I think that we all wanted to write. It had a vague idea for the chorus for a while, and then we just hammered away at it, didn't we, for ages, and got all these nice clever bits in it, and I thought, this is good, you know. And the Anyone Can Play Guitar thing, I mean, I was going to change that. I didn't like that title. I was really but everyone else said, no, that's the best bit, keep it. So we did.
Good. Do you know what the third single is?
Don't know.
Don't know. I mean, the thing is, because each of the songs are different. Like, quite a few people seem to like have different favourite songs. So it could be like Vegetable, maybe.
I'm thinking about you. If you want
about
the radio-friendly one.
Or Stop Whispering, or Lurgy. It's those are the kind of songs that are being looked at the moment. So
Sounds like you've got a lot to choose from.
Yeah, and there's new stuff as well. I mean, third song from the album.
yeah, there's a chance of for college a limited edition thing being done of a new single we're releasing in England called Pop Is Dead, which isn't on the album.
Which is corking. It's very, very good indeed, I think.
Well, that's what matters, huh? That you guys like your music, really. The ultimate thing is, that you like what you've done.
Yeah, otherwise we wouldn't have hung out together so much and done it at school for so long,
And bored all our friends stupid.
Yes.
Now, you guys, I mean, you haven't been, like you're saying, in the public eye, you've been together for like 2 years, really seriously, where you're out, making the music that people can hear and buy. But already you have a lot of catchphrases that have been used to describe your music. For example, ugly duckling pop and angst music for angst people.
I think we were taking the mick there.
Is there any way that you guys describe your music, any terms that you call it, or how do you explain it to people?
Difficult pop. I mean, these are all just phrases. It's not heavy rock. It's not AOR. It's not indie. It's not grunge. It's not. It's the other thing. Well, I mean, remember when kind of pop was good? You remember the last time pop was good? Like the early '80s and stuff. And there's a kind of reference point for us there, rather than us being the '80s revival band. I don't think somehow that will happen, but I'm sure someone else will do that for us.
I mean, there are all those whole hosts of really good bands who just sound like themselves, like Talking Heads early '80s, say, or Depeche Mode, or whatever.
Yeah, whenever you hear them, you just think,
"Oh, that's them."
Yeah, that's them. That's totally them. It's like you don't get that now. It really pisses me off.
What do you worry at all about the effect your music might have on your fans? I mean, it is fueled a lot by frustration and I guess self-loathing.
So some of it, not all of it.
Does it concern you at all, or is it more of an outlet for your fans?
They'll take it how they want to take it, and we'll put a legal disclaimer on the record if people try and top
Judas
themselves.
Priest's painkiller scenario. Yeah. Well,
Although we do put a lot of lyrics backwards.
yeah, it's
On the
like,
record.
yes. What's it? Fornicate with a goat and vote Republican. They're all backwards.
That's
and
right.
stuff like that.
Yeah, on Stop Whistling.
Yes, if you
Listen to it
listen
backwards.
yeah. But you people can't do that now anyway because you can't get vinyl
Well,
and
that's what I'm
CDs.
saying.
What's
Right.
vinyl? So we're experimenting with fax machines at the moment. I think people should just sort of, they should be able to fax songs as well as listen to them. You should be able to plug your fax into your hi-fi, and a picture should come out.
You guys have a kind of a history of injuring yourselves in performances. I know the bleeding fingers and
Yeah.
somebody broke their foot kicking an amp or something.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the injuries you've incurred because of your very high energy performances.
The gig we did in Israel, I got like loads of clumps of my hair ripped out, and someone stole my favourite bangle in the whole world. Like they didn't just steal it; they broke it in half on my hand. And there's always like our guitar tech loves it because there's always loads of blood on all the guitars at the end of the night. But it varies from night to night. We don't do that because we don't do that every night.
It's not like a performance thing. Every
No,
night.
performance for us means we don't know what we're going to do.
Yes.
Have you ever injured yourself?
Only my pride.
Colin's more the Bill Wyman of performance within the band.
What did
Not as
you-
boring though, I hope.
No,
But
What's injured your pride? Have you tripped and fallen over?
I'm starting to play the bass in the beginning of the song, and something's been switched off, and nothing comes out the
brilliant.
speakers.
actually that's happened quite a lot.
Yeah, and that happens quite a lot to us actually. Our guitar tech ran across the stage and switched all the amps off at the end of a set, which is the professional thing to do. But we didn't know because we were not professionals. And so he came back on stage to play, and everyone turned their amps on except Johnny, he'd forgot, and he just played that power chord and Creep, and he raised his hand because he doesn't play until then, and silence.
Complete silence.
He was so upset.
We all just cracked up.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It's really funny.
Would you ever write a really a happy-go-lucky kind of tune and really mean it, or is that?
Yeah, possibly. I'm open to anything. Miracles do happen sometimes.
How about
Depends on what I've taken, I think. Probably.
Tom gets very cuddly when he's drunk. Yes.
Yeah, I'm very sweet when I'm
He's very sweet when he's drunk.
Can either of you do an impression of Phil Selway, drummer? Your drummer Phil.
Mhm.
The back to
Yeah.
he has a pet parrot, I believe. Bert.
But yeah,
And does Bert
Wonderful.
really sing like
Yep.
lines from the song?
Yep.
Can somebody do an
better than Tom.
Oh, I can't. No,
Oh,
I don't do impressions.
no, it's really croaky. It's like
I've got a nephew
like
who can
that.
do it as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Phil's parrot Bert is a very good judge of character. If he doesn't like someone, he'll bite them, and he won't. So we think,
swear at him.
yeah, he must think we're all right then, because if he sings the songs.
What? As a final question, what are you hoping to accomplish with your music?
Be able to stay at the height again.
That's great. What a great hotel,
What a
and there are
great
branches
place. I mean,
worldwide.
surely.
I understand, isn't that right, Tom?
Surely, I mean, when you've got a pool top on top of your hotel, I mean,
Not in the middle like some hotels, but right at the top.
Something's happened.
Yes, what a great hotel.
What do we want to achieve?
We just want to be-
worldwide domination and the ability to help save third world countries.
Yes, and it's you just want to be happy and be able to carry on doing what you're doing, I suppose, and make some money as well to get going, to keep yourself. That's it, really.
It's all art.